Hello, everyone, and welcome to Friday's Gentle Yoga class. I'm so excited to be here with you today. My name is Kristin O'Donnell, and Hands to Heart Center Yoga for the People is a nonprofit organization that shares the healing practice of yoga with people affected by addiction, poverty, and trauma in the greater Boston area. Hands to Heart Center would like to thank the Boston Public Library for partnering with us on this virtual project. So welcome, welcome. We'll get started with gentle yoga. If you have any props, feel free to reach for 2 blocks or 2 books if you have them, or a blanket if you have one, or you can also reach for any cushions or pillows that you might like as well. For today's practice, if you'd like, we might start in a lying down shape. So whenever you're ready, maybe slowly finding your way to lie on your back, finding your way there in your own time. And if you'd like, you can choose to have your knees bent with feet on the floor, or you can choose to bring your legs long, straightening the knees, finding either variation in your body. Another choice might be to close your eyes or maybe keep a soft gaze in front of you. Taking a few moments to check in with your body. So if you'd like, you may close your eyes or you might keep them open with a soft gaze. And maybe starting to become aware of your breathing. You might start to notice your inhales and exhales. You might notice that your body might move with your breath. So if you'd like, you could bring one hand to your chest, maybe one to your abdomen. Maybe noticing any movement in your chest and abdomen as you're breathing. You might notice a rising and falling. If you can, taking a few moments to check in with yourself, maybe noticing your breath, how fast or slow it might be. Maybe noticing how your body is resting in this moment. So you might start to notice how your body is resting on your mat, maybe becoming aware of some body parts that may be touching your mat. And you might become aware of some of your body parts that are not touching your mat. So if you can, checking in and maybe noticing how every part of your body might be touching your mat. And maybe those parts that aren't, allowing yourself to notice and with love and without judgment, allowing them to be as they are in this moment. Taking a few more moments to notice maybe your breath, maybe your body. Maybe taking some time to notice what your thoughts might be doing. And if you can, allowing your thoughts to pass by without attaching, if possible. Allowing your thoughts to pass by and not affect your practice. So today's practice might be a time for you to focus on your body and your movements. Might be a time to bring your attention to your physical body. Again, taking a few more moments here to listen and to notice how your breath, your body, and your mind might be doing in these few moments before our class today, as we start in our class today. So maybe finding another moment or two to notice. And in your own time, if you'd like, you might start to bend your knees and maybe bringing your feet to your mat if they're not already there. So possibly bringing your feet to your mat if they're not already there. And we'll start with some small pelvic movements. So when you're ready, If you want, you can have your hands on your hips or you can have them by your sides. You might start to press your feet into the floor. So making this a very gentle, little amount of pressure if you can, and starting to notice what that does. You might start to notice as your feet are pressing into the floor, maybe your lower back starts to move so that it's flush with the mats. Maybe your pelvis starts to move up towards your chest. So you can add that movement, maybe releasing that pressure in your feet and coming back to neutral when you're ready. And let's welcome Marshmallow. She's my partner in crime. She'll probably be making a few appearances during class today. So if you'd like, possibly doing that a few times, pressing your feet into your mats in your own time, and maybe noticing your lower back coming flush to the floor, maybe not. And then when you're ready, releasing that pressure in your feet and noticing your pelvis move back to center. So maybe doing that 1 or 2 more times if you'd like, pressing your feet into your mat, possibly noticing how that affects your lower back. You might notice how it affects other parts of your body too. So maybe it causes your chin to lift a little. Maybe you're noticing your back is completely pressing onto the floor in other areas as well. And then when you're ready, releasing that pressure in your feet. So maybe doing that 1 more time if you'd like, pressing your feet into your mat and releasing in your own time. And you might choose to take a moment or two to pause, maybe bring your hands down by your sides if they're not already there. And we'll start to move into a few leg exercises. So when you're ready, maybe bringing your right knee in towards your chest. So you might pause here. Another choice might be to straighten your leg up towards the ceiling. So you can keep a bend in your knee. You can have it as straight as you might like, making sure it's not too straight where you're straining your leg. And then in your own time, maybe bending your knee once again and eventually lowering your foot back down to the floor. So as I did, maybe experimenting with doing that nice and slow if possible. So if you'd like, possibly doing that 2 more times. So when you're ready, maybe bringing your knee in towards your chest, possibly straightening your leg and bringing your foot up towards the ceiling. And then in your own time, maybe bending your knee once again and eventually bringing your foot back down to the floor. And feel free to pause for a moment or two. And then in your own time, you can always come into that whenever you're ready. So maybe bringing your knee to your chest. You might straighten your leg in your own time. And in your own time, bending your knee again and eventually bringing your foot back down to the floor. Now we did that 3 times on the right side. So whenever you're ready, you can start with the left side. So maybe starting to bend your left knee in towards your chest. Might start to raise it up towards the ceiling. And pausing there if you'd like, or in your own time, bending your knee again and slowly bringing your foot down to the floor. And maybe pausing in between those movements. And whenever you're ready, choosing to do that 2 more times. So maybe bending your knee in towards your chest. Maybe lifting your leg up. And when you're ready, bending your knee again and slowly bringing your foot back down to the floor. Maybe experimenting with that 1 more time. You might slowly start to bring your knee in towards your chest, lifting up towards the ceiling. When you're ready, lowering your leg down, knee in towards your chest if you can, and then gently back to the floor. Maybe taking a moment or two to pause, and we'll move into another leg exercise when you're ready. So if you'd like, you might start to maybe lift the right leg up towards the ceiling, eventually bringing it to straighten, maybe with a little bend in your knee. And if you'd like, possibly adding some ankle circles. So maybe moving your ankle in circles in this shape. And if you moved your ankle in circles in one direction, you might choose to move your ankle in circles in the opposite direction. And then if you'd like, maybe letting that go and slowly bringing your foot back down to the floor. When you're ready, doing the same thing with your left leg, slowly bringing it up towards the ceiling. And then maybe gently adding some ankle circles into this movement. So maybe moving your ankle in one direction a few times. And whenever you're ready, maybe starting to move your ankle in the opposite direction. Doing that as much or as little as you might like. Eventually letting go of that movement and slowly bringing your leg back down to the floor. So when you're ready, this time raising your right leg up again. And if you'd like, you might choose to bring your hands behind your upper right leg to help stabilize it. So one choice here might be to gently move your right leg out to the right side. So again, this can be a very small movement or it can be bigger. We want to make sure that both hips stay on the floor. So if you notice that you move your leg out and your left hip wants to come up, you want to make sure you bring that leg in a little bit so that both hips stay on the floor with this exercise. So maybe doing that a few times, bringing the right leg gently out to the side. This can be a very small movement. And then back to center. And then one last time when you're ready, out to the side. And then back to center. And eventually releasing your hands and slowly bringing your right foot back down to the floor. In your own time, doing that same thing on the left side. So when you're ready, starting to extend your leg up towards the ceiling. Maybe bringing your hands behind your leg if you'd like for extra support. And then gently bringing that left leg out to the left side this time. Again, keeping both hips on the floor as best as you can and only moving that left leg so that both of those hips stay on the floor. And let's do that 2 more times. So bringing it out to the left side. And then when you're ready, coming back to center. Maybe doing that 1 more time. Bringing your leg out to the side. And then eventually back to center. When you're ready, slowly lowering your hands down, maybe bringing that leg to come down, and possibly taking a few moments before we do the last leg exercise in this part of class. So if you'd like, taking a moment to pause, to notice your body in this moment. Checking in with yourself as best you can. And then when you're ready, gently lifting that right leg up one last time. And if you'd like, you can bring your hands behind your leg again. And this time, maybe moving the entire leg in circles. So again, this can be a very small movement. Maybe moving your entire leg in circles in one direction. And then when you're ready, you can stop that movement and reverse the direction of your circles. So maybe moving your leg in the opposite direction. Coming back to center when you're ready. And slowly releasing your hands, maybe gently bringing your leg down so that your leg stays straight as long as you can before making its way back to meet the left. And then when you're ready, finding the left side. So this time extending the left leg, maybe bringing the hands behind your left leg and gently moving your leg in circles in one direction. You can choose which direction you'd like to start with. This can be a very slow and small movement, really listening to your body here. And then whenever you're ready, you can pause and reverse that direction, possibly going the opposite way. So maybe reversing the direction, going the opposite way. Doing that a few times if you'd like. And when you're ready, coming back to center, lowering your hands down and slowly lowering that left leg down, maybe keeping it straight if you can. Bringing it down to the mat in your own time. Slowly bringing the left leg to meet the right. And if you'd like, you might choose to bring both knees in towards your chest, possibly rocking from side to side here. Taking a few moments in this shape if you'd like. And maybe coming to center, possibly rolling to one side, and eventually, in your own time, pressing yourself up to seated. So finding your way to a seated shape whenever you're ready. If you do have any props and you'd like a blanket or a cushion underneath you in seated, feel free to reach for that. And you can set that up for yourself. Taking a few moments in your easy shape. So maybe noticing how your spine feels in this shape. You might imagine that maybe there's a string pulling your head and spine upwards towards the ceiling to help elongate your spine in this shape. And then when you're ready, maybe stretching both arms out by your sides, you might sort of pull yourself in both directions, giving yourself a nice big stretch. When you're ready, maybe coming back to center, lifting your arms up overhead, maybe stretching up towards the ceiling. You might bring your gaze to look up towards the ceiling as well. And in your own time, slowly lowering your hands back down by your sides. If you'd like, you might start to interlace your hands together and maybe pressing your palms away from you. So if you'd like, you can curve your lower back in this shape so that your arms are pressing in one direction, your lower back is pressing in the opposite direction. Taking a moment or two here, if you'd like, you can slowly start to bring your arms up overhead, maybe stretching up towards the ceiling a little bit. Can add some movement here if you'd like, and then slowly in your own time, letting go of that. I want to mention too that this is your class, so feel free to move in any way that works for your body, and that I'm only here as a guide. So if there's anything that doesn't feel right to you, you can feel free to leave it on the side of your mat and discard it. So really listening to your body and only doing what feels right in your body today. Now, if you'd like, maybe bringing your right arm across your body, holding it there with your left hand. And you might choose to bring some circles into your wrists in this shape, maybe in one direction or both directions, keeping your torso facing forward so that you're not moving with your arm. You're letting there be a little bit of a stretch there. And then when you're ready, in your own time, starting to let that go and bring both arms down to rest. So maybe bring that left arm across your body, holding it there with your right hand. And if you'd like, maybe moving your wrist in circles in one or in both directions. And maybe pausing here for a moment or two. Always choosing to add stillness or add movement, whatever you choose in your body. Letting that go when you're ready, lowering both hands down by your sides. And if you'd like, maybe adding some movement into your head. So you might start to move your head from side to side. Maybe moving your head up and down. Another choice might be to move your head in circles. So maybe moving your head in circles. This might be a small, slow movement if you'd like. Taking your time to notice. Maybe finding any spots that your neck might need a little bit more attention. And if you'd like, you can pause there for a moment or two. Finding your way back to center whenever you'd like, and maybe adding some movement in your shoulders. You might start to move your shoulders up and down a few times. You might start to move your shoulders in circles. And if you chose circles, maybe doing a few in one direction. And in your own time, maybe doing a few in the opposite direction. And whenever you're ready, starting to let that go and rest. And maybe bringing your arms up overhead, possibly inhaling. And whenever you're ready, maybe twisting over to the right side. So you might bring your right hand to rest behind your back. Maybe your left hand rests on your right knee. Twisting to your right side. If you'd like, you might inhale, lengthen your spine on each inhale if you want to. And on your exhale, you might choose to twist a little bit more. Finding any twist you might like, lengthening and maybe twisting a little bit more. Taking your time here, noticing what feels right in your body. And then in your own time, slowly making your way back to center. If you'd like, moving into the other side, maybe inhale, lifting your arms up overhead. And then on your exhale, maybe moving into your twist on the left side. This time, the left hand reaches behind your back, your right hand resting on your left knee. And you might choose to lengthen and inhale at the same time, lengthening your spine. And you might like to twist a little bit more on your exhale, or you might choose not to. So finding however big or small of a twist you might like in this shape. And pausing here, noticing what comes up for you in this shape. And whenever you're ready, slowly making your way back to center. If you'd like, maybe bringing your right hand down to your mat and possibly lifting your left hand up and overhead for a side stretch. So you might choose to pause here. You might choose to add some movement. So maybe coming back through center, maybe bringing your left hand to your mat, and maybe bringing the right arm up overhead. So possibly doing a side stretch on one side and the other. Maybe doing that a few times back and forth. Taking your time, finding stillness or movement in this shape, whatever your body might be calling for in this moment. And always knowing that what your body asks for might be different in one moment to the next. And wherever you are with this movement, maybe doing one or two more before making your way back to center. And when you're ready, coming back to center. And we'll start to make our way to our hands and knees. So if you do have sensitive knees, feel free to reach for a blanket or a cushion to bring to your mat so that your knees can have a little extra support. And making your way to your hands and knees when you're ready. You might make sure that your knees are underneath your hips, wrists are underneath your shoulders. And when you're ready, maybe experimenting with a few movements. So one choice might be to lift your head up, your gaze looking in front of you into your cow shape. Pausing here, shoulders are relaxed. And another choice might be to lower your head down and curve your lower back up into your cat shape. pausing in one shape or the other, or you might choose to move from one shape to the other, maybe moving to your cow. And then in your own time, moving to your cat. So allowing yourself to choose what feels the best for you here. So maybe this is a continuous movement from one shape to the other. Maybe this is a pause in one shape or the other. So feel free to allow yourself to pause and be still in one shape or both. Sometimes that can really be a nice stretch to pause rather than making it a continuous movement. So, if you can, really listening to what your body is asking for this afternoon. Continuing to experiment for another moment or two, taking your time with it. Maybe choosing to breathe with your movement if you chose to move. So, you might inhale with your cow shape. Maybe exhale with your cat shape, or maybe it's the opposite. You can also choose to move separate of your breath as well. And then when you're ready, slowly making your way back to a neutral shape, back to that table shape with your hands and knees on the mat. From here, if you'd like, maybe extending your right leg out behind you. So maybe pressing your right toes into the mat. You might choose to rock gently from forward to back if you'd like. Maybe noticing a gentle stretch here. And then when you're ready, maybe pausing and slowly in your own time, bringing your right leg hip height. So maybe pausing in this shape for a few moments. And then when you're ready, slowly bringing that right leg to meet the left. Finding your way to the other side. So when you're ready, maybe extending your left leg behind you. You might press your toes into the mat. Maybe finding that gentle movement forward and back if you'd like. And then in your own time, maybe coming back to stillness, and you might slowly start to bring your left leg hip height. Maybe pausing here for a moment or two. And then when you're ready, slowly lowering your left knee to meet the right. If you'd like, you might choose to sit back towards your feet, maybe taking a moment outside of that shape. And you might notice your wrists might start to bother you. So if you'd like, you can bring each hand and move it forward and back a few times. Another choice might be to interlace your hands and maybe moving your wrists in a figure eight movement. You can also choose to move your wrists in circles, finding whatever movement might relieve any pressure or strain that you feel in your wrists. And when you're ready, we'll make our way back to that table shape. So finding your way back to your table in your own time. And we'll experiment with that same movement one more time. So this time, maybe extending your right leg and bringing it hip height right away. Let's take one big breath in and out. And then in your own time, slowly lowering back down. Moving to the left side when you're ready. Left leg out, coming up hip height right away. Taking a moment, inhale and exhale. And when you're ready, lowering back down to your mat. Now, if you'd like, feel free to move to your first downward dog of class tonight. So you might stay where you are. Maybe you bring your hands slightly forward. And then when you're ready, pressing your toes into your mat, straightening your feet, and slowly bringing your hips up towards the ceiling. One choice might be to stay still in this shape. You might choose to add some movement. So maybe lifting your toes up to your tiptoes a few times, doing that. Another choice might be to bend your knees and straighten them a few times. Third choice could be to walk in place, maybe bending one knee and then the other. Taking as much time as you'd like with stillness or movement in your downward dog shape. And then whenever you're ready, slowly finding your way back to your table, bringing your knees back to the mat, and maybe sitting back once more. And if you need to, moving your wrists in those circles or interlacing your hands and moving them in that figure eight. Finding whatever your body is asking for in this moment. And once you feel like your wrists are a bit happier, we'll make our way back to that table shape. Coming back to table. And another choice too is also you can come down to your forearm. So if it's too much to put pressure into your hands and wrists, you can always do all of these movements on your forearms, and that works as well too. So when you're ready, once you're in your table once again, maybe lifting your right arm up overhead, and then when you're bringing it down, bringing it behind your left wrist and bringing your right shoulder and head to the floor. You can also bring your head and shoulder to a block or book if that's more accessible to you. And then from here, you might start to walk your left hand out in front of your body so that it's reaching towards the front of your mat. Taking a few moments in this shape, allowing yourself to pause and rest as best you can. Whenever you're ready, slowly walking your left hand back towards your head and using it to push up back to your table, maybe lifting your right hand one more time and then bringing it back down to the mat. If you'd like, you can start to bring your right foot in between your hands. And if you do have blocks or books, you can bring those blocks or books underneath your hands in this shape. So from here, you might choose to stay still, or if you'd like, you might start to add some movement. So maybe this is a small movement in your hips, moving forward and back gently. If it's available to you, you can make this a bigger movement, going as far forward you might like, maybe going as far back as is available to you. Again, really listening to your body in this and making this small to start and getting bigger only if that feels available to you. And really taking your time to experiment here as best as you might like to. This can also be a time for stillness. It might not be an active movement for you. And really meeting your body where it is and sending yourself some love no matter where you are in this moment. So maybe experimenting here for another few moments, taking your time with whatever movements or stillness are calling to you right now. And then finding your way back to that neutral stance where your hips are in the center of your mat, your hands framing your foot. And if you'd like, maybe bringing the left hand down to the mat or a block or a book. And if it's available to you, reaching the right arm up towards the ceiling so that your upper body and torso are facing the right side of your mat. And then when you're ready, lowering back down so that both hands, are framing your foot once again. And then we'll start to bring that right foot back to meet the left so that you're back in your table. And from here, maybe keeping the legs where they are, you might start to walk forward into your puppy shape so that your head either makes its way down to the floor or to a blocker book if you have one in front of your body, and your arms are reaching towards the front of your mat. Taking a moment or two to pause in this shape, allowing yourself to notice how this shape feels in your body and really paying attention to your neck and making sure there isn't any strain there as well. Whenever you're ready, slowly bringing yourself back to your table shape. And if you need to take a minute, feel free to sit back on your feet, maybe moving your wrists again in those circles or figure 8 movements. Taking a moment to pause. And when you're ready, coming back to your table. Moving into the other side. So this time, maybe lifting your left arm up overhead and slowly bringing it down behind your right wrist and bringing your left shoulder and head either to the mat or to a blocker book if you have one of those. Finding what feels acceptable, feels like you could stay here for a little bit, and maybe starting to walk your right hand towards the front of your mat. Taking a few moments in your thread the needle shape. And when you're ready, slowly walking your right hand back towards your head and using it to press up into your table again. Maybe once more, lifting and lowering your left hand back to the mat. When you're ready, you might bring your left foot in between your hands this time. And if you'd like, you can have the 2 blocks or 2 books underneath your hands, or your hands can be directly on the mat, whatever feels available to you. And I might keep those for the side. And if you'd like, you can choose to stay in this kneeling lunge shape, or you might start to add that movement. So maybe adding that gentle movement forward and back, starting small and slow. And then you might choose, depending on what your body is asking for, you might choose to make this movement bigger. You might choose to make it a little faster. You might choose to keep it where it is. So really, as best you can, paying attention to your body and what it needs in this moment. And the best way to do that is to start slow. Because when we go too fast, our body doesn't have a chance to tell us whether we need to stop or slow down. So it's always best to start slow. So really listening to what your body might be asking for here. Taking another moment or two to experiment with whatever your body wants in this moment. And then when you're ready in your own time, slowly finding your way back to that neutral kneeling shape with your hands framing your foot. And then you might choose to bring your right hand to the mat or to a block or book, maybe lifting your left arm up towards the ceiling so that your torso is facing the left side of your mat. Taking a moment or two here, and then slowly bringing both hands to frame your foot once again. In your own time, bringing your left leg to meet your right and finding that puppy shape once again. Your hips stay where they are. Hands start to walk forward. Head makes its way to the floor or to a block or book. Taking your time to pause, to notice what is coming up for your body in this moment. Slowly bringing yourself back to your table, sitting back once again. If you'd like to move your wrists a little bit, if they are having a hard time, feel free to do any wrist movements your body might be asking for. And we'll move into one more downward dog of class. So finding your way maybe to table first. You might set up your hands a little further from that table shape and then pressing your toes into the mat, straightening your knees and bringing your hips up towards the ceiling. So option to add movement here, maybe bending one knee and then the other. Maybe moving your hips from side to side or bending your knees a few times. And then when you're ready, slowly bending your knees and bringing them to the floor once again. Finding your child shape. So this time, the knees can stay together or you can choose to widen your knees and eventually the hips sit back towards the feet. Again, your arms are stretched out in front of your body. Your head might come down to a block or a book or the floor. And taking your time to pause and rest in this shape if you'd like. Another choice might be to walk your hands over to the right side of your mat, maybe noticing a stretch in the left side of your body. And then in your own time, maybe coming back through center and walking your hands over to the left side of your mat, maybe finding a stretch in the right side of your body. And then when you're ready, coming back to center, maybe pausing for a moment or two, and then slowly coming back to your table shape. Now we'll find our way to seated. So maybe bringing your hips to one side and bringing your feet out in front of you. You might, if you have a blanket on your mat, move it aside. And making your way to a seated shape, maybe bringing the bottoms of your feet together. So finding your bound angle. If you do have blocks or books, you might choose to bring them underneath your knees. And you might start to find that tall seated shape once again. So maybe taking that string, pulling your head and spine up towards the ceiling as high as you can go. Sitting nice and tall, but allowing your body to find some softness, some relaxation in this shape as well. And if you'd like, you can start to walk your hands forward, maybe finding a forward fold. Taking a few moments for this stretch in either variation, whether you're in forward fold or in seated, whatever your body might be asking for this evening. And when you're ready, if you are in that forward fold, slowly making your way back to seated. You can choose to bring your hands underneath your knees, maybe bringing them towards each other, and you might slowly start to bring your legs out in front of your body. Maybe giving your legs a little shake here. And we'll find our way to lie back on our backs. So if you do have a block or a book, making sure you have one nearby. And in your own time, finding your way to lie back on the floor on your back. So finding your way there in your own time. You might have your knees bent, you might choose to have your legs long. And maybe taking a moment or two to check in with your body, as we did at the beginning of class, to notice how your body is resting in this shape. Maybe noticing what parts of your body are resting on the floor, what parts might not be. And whenever you're ready, if your knees are not bent, starting to bend your knees and bring your feet to plant on the floor so that both feet are resting on the floor. You can bring them as close to your hips as feels available to you. Making sure that block or book is nearby if you have one. If not, you can also use a blanket or a cushion or your hands. So I'll show you how to do that if you choose to. So to start, maybe have your hands by your sides, and slowly as you're pressing into the mat with your feet, you might start to lift your hips up off the floor. So allowing this to be a very small, gentle movement, lifting your hips only as far as you might like them to go, and then slowly lowering them back down to the mat. Always taking a break in between, taking some time to pause. And then when you're ready, slowly doing that again, pressing your feet into your mat and gently lifting your hips up off the floor. Again, this can be a very small lift. It can be bigger. Finding where you might like to stop. And then slowly in your own time, bringing your hips back down to the floor. Taking another moment or two to pause. This next one will bring in that block or book or cushion or blanket or hands, whatever it is you decide to use underneath your hips. And when you're ready, slowly pressing into your feet once again, lifting your hips up and only lifting them up as far as you might need to, either to put your hands underneath them, to put your blanket or block. If you have a block or book, using it on the lowest possible setting so that the height is the smallest height that you might be. And letting your hips gently rest there. And you might stay in this shape for a few moments. You might choose to pause here. Another choice might be to bend your knees and bring them into your chest, maybe pausing in this shape. And a third choice might be to extend your legs, bringing them up towards the ceiling. So you might even flex your feet almost as if you're trying to stand on the ceiling. Choosing to pause in any of those variations, making sure you're breathing and letting go of all of that whenever it feels available to you. So slowly, whichever variation you are in, bringing your feet back to the floor. And once you do, pressing your feet once again into your mat, lifting your hips up, taking out whatever it is underneath your hips, and then slowly lowering your hips back down to the floor. Lovely. And maybe taking a moment or two to pause and to notice. Sometimes when we bring something underneath our backs and then we come back to the floor, our back sort of assumes that thing is still there. So noticing if you can sort of feel that sensation, or maybe you can't, and that's okay too. So whenever you're ready, if you'd like, you might choose to bring your knees in towards your chest, maybe rocking from side to side a few times. When you're ready, if you'd like, you could stay here, or you might choose to make your way to happy baby. So maybe bringing your hands to hold your feet. You might stay in this shape, or you might bring your feet up so that they're pointing towards the ceiling. Your knees sort of pointing in towards your armpits. And this is another shape where you could choose to rock from side to side. So you can choose to add that movement here if you'd like. You can keep your knees in towards your chest as well, finding whichever variation feels right in your body. And then when you're ready, slowly starting to release that, maybe bringing your knees to your chest if they're not already there. And in your own time, starting to roll over to your left side. So this time your left leg is on the floor, your right leg is on top. If you'd like, you can bring your upper body to follow, so your entire body's resting on your left side. Or if you'd like to move into a twist, you can choose to extend your arms out on either side of your body in a T shape, and maybe bringing your gaze so that it's over your right shoulder, so that your upper body is twisting in one direction and your lower body is twisting in another direction. Finding whatever feels right for you, whichever variation feels like it's calling to you in this moment. And allowing yourself, if you can, to pause. Maybe be still, maybe finding movement if that feels more available to you. And then in your own time, whenever you're ready, slowly coming back to center. Maybe hugging your knees into your chest again. And when you're ready, moving to the other side. So this time moving both legs to the other side so that your right leg is on the bottom and your left leg is on top. You might bring your entire upper torso to meet your legs and roll to your right side, or you might choose to move into that twist with your hands in a T shape on either side of your body and maybe your gaze over your left shoulder. Taking a few moments in any variation on this side of the shape. Taking your time to pause or maybe add some stillness or some movement. Whatever your body might be calling for on this side. Maybe it's completely different from the other side, and that's okay too. And then in your own time, whenever you're ready, finding your way back to center, maybe hugging your knees into your chest one more time. You might rock from side to side. And then whenever you're ready, I'd like to invite you to find your way to your final rest for class today. So whatever your resting shape might be for class, you might be lying down with your knees bent. Maybe your legs are long. Maybe your arms are by your sides or resting on your body. You might even choose to roll to one side. And if you have any props, any blankets or cushions or anything, feel free to use them for your rest shape. You can bring a blanket or cushion underneath your head. You can bring a blanket or cushion underneath your knees or your feet or your arms or even your lower back. Finding whatever props you might like to help support you in this resting shape. And once you've settled here, maybe taking a few moments to pause and to notice. If you'd like, you can close your eyes, or you might choose to keep a soft gaze in front of you. And maybe taking a moment to notice what parts of your body might be resting on the floor. So maybe that's the same as the beginning of class. Maybe it's a little different. So allowing yourself to be aware and to notice that. And then when you're ready, doing a short body scan. So maybe bringing your attention to your feet. You might start to notice how your feet are resting. Maybe they're resting in the same way. Maybe they're resting slightly different from one another. And becoming aware of what that might be. Maybe bringing your attention to your legs. You might start to notice how each of your legs is resting. Noticing if one leg feels like it's resting a little different than the other. Maybe they're both resting in the same way. Maybe bringing your attention to your hips and possibly noticing how each of your hips is resting. You might start to bring your attention to your lower back and maybe noticing how your lower back is resting. Noticing if there's a gap there or maybe if there isn't. So you can bring one hand to your lower back if you'd like to see how big or small that gap might be. And then maybe bringing your attention to your middle back. If you can, possibly noticing where your ribs end, where they come together. Maybe bringing your attention to your upper back and your shoulders. Possibly noticing how each of your shoulders is resting. Or maybe noticing how your shoulders are resting. Does one shoulder feel like it's resting slightly different from the other? Maybe yes, maybe no. And then maybe finding how both arms are resting. So possibly noticing how both of your arms are resting in this moment. Are they both resting on the floor or on another part of your body? Are there parts of your arms that are resting on that surface and parts that might not be? And then in your own time, maybe taking a moment or two to notice how your head and neck are resting. And if you'd like, you might add some movement in your neck, maybe moving your head from side to side. So noticing if you'd like how your head and your neck might be resting in this moment. And then if you'd like, maybe noticing your whole body and how your whole body is resting. Taking a moment to become aware of your entire body as you're resting on the floor. And if you'd like, I'll be quiet for the next minute and a half. So feel free to use that time to be still or to use it to add movement. When you're ready in your own time, maybe slowly starting to bring some movement back into your body. You might start to wiggle your fingers and your toes. Another choice might be to move your wrists and ankles in circles, taking your time, coming back into the room, back into the space that you're in. If you'd like, you might bring your arms up overhead for a full body stretch. Ooh, and I'm running out of room here, but you might have plenty of room for that. So feel free to stretch your body in any way that you might need to and might like to in this moment. And then maybe slowly finding your way to a seated shape. You might choose to lie down for a moment or two, lie on your side maybe. Finding your way to seated in your own time. So, really, if you can, taking your time getting there, listening to your body. If you'd like, maybe bringing your palms together in front of your chest. May the light within me honor the light within each of you. Namaste. Thank you for joining me this evening for this Hands to Heart Center and Boston Public Library class. My name is Kristin O'Donnell, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening.